Okay, so this video is discussing the Schule of the Deutsch Komplett chapter. So again, like the last video, the chapters have a common structure to them. We're about to start off with the mündliche Arbeit. So, welche Fächer lernen Sie? What subjects do you learn? Welche Fächer werden hier angeboten? What subjects are offered here? Angeboten is the past tense of anbieten. Anbieten is a separable verb. What is a separable verb? So, if you were to imagine me writing on a board and you'd see the word anbieten, A-N-B-I-E-T-E-N, and after the letters A-N, I'd have a line, horizontal line, or sorry, vertical line, splicing the A-N from the beaten. So, these little parts of the start of verbs that can be removed are called separable verbs. So how would I say I offer in the present tense would be ich biete an. Okay? And the past tense is ich habe angeboten. Okay? Was ist Ihr Lieblingsfach? Or was sind Ihre Lieblingsfächer? What's your favorite subject, favorite subjects? Was machen Sie im Deutschunterricht? Wie sieht ein typischer Schultag aus? What does a typical school day seem like? Was machen Sie in den Pausen? What do Pausen or breaks, like a pause on daily life? Wie finden Sie diese Schule? Note that Schule is a D word, so the majority of D words are words ending in E are D words. So diese Schule, the glaring example is das Wochenende. So it's das Ende, das Wochenende. From the last chapter, you would have known that Wochenende is a compound word. Wochen ein Ende. Okay. Warum sind Sie Ihre Lieblingsfächer? Warum? Okay. Was finden Sie einfach oder schwierig? Simple or difficult? Bekommen Sie viel Hausaufgabe? Okay. So vocabulary, that's important. Ich mache dieses Jahr das Abitur. Okay. Ich mache dieses Jahr das Lieblingscertificate. Because das Abitur is the name of the state examination in Germany, and we don't have that in Ireland. Our one's called das Lieblingscertificate. So if you want to be quite thorough and correct, we don't do the Abitur here in Ireland. Jahr is das Jahr, so that's why it's dieses. If you want to say next year, it's nächstes Jahr. So N, A umlaut, C-H-G-S-T-S, nächstes Jahr. I told you anbieten, angeboten. Viele Fächer werden hier angeboten. Okay. Pflichtfächer, compulsory subjects. Note that if it's more than one, sind. If it's only Pflichtfach, F-A-C-H, with no umlaut, it's ist. Okay, meine Wahlfächer sind Wirtschaftslehre. You can say Betriebswirtschaft. There's multiple ways of saying business studies, as there's multiple ways of saying any word in any language. Whichever one you use, just make sure you can spell it correctly and you can use it in context. Buchhandlung, Hauswirtschaft, Sport, Physik, Chemie, Biologie, Religion. In der Unterstufe kann man Französisch und Deutsch lernen. Note that in der Unterstufe is like the first idea of a sentence. Second idea is always the verb, so kann, and then the subject comes after man. So one can. So again, it's like if you were referencing who can speak German or French, you'd say their name. But if you don't, it's the impersonal third person singular, which is one. In meiner Schule muss ich in der Oberstufe zwischen ihnen wählen. So again, I must choose between something. Ich mache Leistungskurs Deutsch, ich mache Grundkurs Irisch. Okay. Ich finde Mathe anspruchsvoll. Now I mentioned to a student in an examination that if, for example, you were asked, what is ich finde Mathe anspruchsvoll? Or if you had the English, I find math challenging, and you need to find the German. If you don't know the exact word, use your words, go through your word bank in your head and try to find something suitable to slot in substitution of the word anspruchsvoll. So as long as the context is clear and it's grammatically correct, it's acceptable and fine. So don't panic that you don't know exactly everything. Just substitute words intelligently. Aber ich finde Erdkunde langweilig. Okay. Physik ist nützlich, interessant, einfach, schwierig, trocken. Okay. The question here might be asked, was machen Sie in Deutschunterricht? In den Deutschunterricht lesen wir Texte. Wir üben Grammatik und lernen Vokabeln. Auch schreiben wir Briefe und Äußerungen über Themen wie die Umwelt und die Schule. Okay. So wie is like. Okay. An example of weil, comma before it, it's a grammatical error if you forget it. Weil sie praktisch in the verb at the end. When you have like und, oder, aber, denn, that's like starting off a new sentence. So the verb goes to the end of the first sentence, which makes a rational, logical idea before starting off the second sentence. Ich kann nicht ausstehen, denn es ist Trockenstreit. So. Die Lehrerin ist nett und ausbericht. Okay. Der Schultag beginnt um 9 und endet um 4. Because later on we could do a comparison between the Schultag in Deutschland. Okay. So that's the first part. Okay. So I've explained this already. So you have the text. Okay. You have the questions, answer in English and or answer in German, depending on. So if it's asked questions in English, answer in English. If it's questions in German, answer in German. So we'll jump straight to. So paragraph 2. Wo spielten die Kinder? Where did the children play? Okay. We know spielen if you know it, but if you don't know this tense, when you put in the T at the end, it signifies das Präteritum. Now, das Präteritum is different from das Perfekt. Das Perfekt is ich habe gespielt. So, present tense is ich spiele. I'm talking about what I'm doing now. Ich habe gespielt is what I did yesterday, what I did only 10 seconds ago, what I did last week, something in the recent past, something that I have a strong memory association to, that is somewhat caught up in my current thinking and my processing, in my short-term memory, so to speak. But spielten, as we'll go in the grammar further on, it's talking about what you could have done many, many, many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's like when you're writing a narrative in English, you're setting the atmosphere, you're setting the tone, setting the mood by using different tenses to narrate your story. So number 3, wo spielten die Kinder? Paragraph 3, as I told you, it'll tell you exactly where it's going. Okay. Inzwischen lernte er einige Kinder der Stadt kennen, die oft auf dem großen Hof spielten. Er mochte ein Mädchen mit langen Zöpfen und großen braunen Augen. Sie heißt Brunhild. Ihr Vater war der Hausmeister des Miethauses. Er spielte sehr gerne mit ihr. Okay, so very simple. The verb spielten is in the text, or in the question, so we look for the equivalent verb spielten. Okay, so in between, he learned a few children in the city who often played in the large, now we know Hof. I said Schulhof is like schoolyard. Imagine if you know that. So Hof is yard. So if you didn't know that, you can just make a little guess. Okay, select the correct synonym for the word Wald. Okay, so you're selecting this won't be in the exam, it's just to kind of increase your vocabulary. Okay. Number 4, complete the following sentences by reflecting the contents of the text. Er konnte nicht schlafen, weil. Okay, so again, in der Stadt wohnten sie in einer Zweizimmerwohnung in einer Straße mit viel Verkehr. Die ersten Wochen konnte er nicht schlafen. Autos gab in dem kleinen Dorf nicht, wobei seine Großeltern gelebt haben. Gab, GAB, is das Präteritum, the distant past of geben. So for example, if I have ich gebe, you know es gibt, there is or there are. Hat gegeben is the recent past. Gab, GAB, is the distant past. So he couldn't sleep because of the traffic. Er konnte nicht schlafen, weil es so viel Verkehr gab. So weil plus the verb at the end of the sentence. So again, it's just practicing and reinforcing your word order as you go along. Again, this is just revision. Again, it's what we've done. Und, aber, oder, then, then. So you know from my other videos and in my class, you start a sentence with SVTMP. If you use und, aber, sondern, denn, oder, no, with then you have a comma before it, otherwise it's a grammatical error. It doesn't affect the word order, you just continue with SVTMP. However, when you're using subordinate conjunctions, as the linguistic term calls for, you have SVTMP plus one of these words, and then you have STMPV, the first verb. So, for example, ich spiele Fußball, weil es gut für die Gesundheit ist. Okay? That's using, so the first verb after this conjunction goes to the end of the verb. Now, how would you do that in the past tense? Because you're using two verbs. Okay, so I'll give an example. Ich bin nach Deutschland gefahren, weil ich meine Freundin besucht habe. Okay, so the first verb is the verb that goes to the end. So at the end we'd have two verbs together, a double infinitive, two verbs at the end, not a double infinitive. Please forget that. I shouldn't have said that in the video. So the important ones here to know are weil, because, comma goes before it, wenn, okay, comma before it, ob is whether, obgleich is although, als is when, and again, focus on 3 or 4 that you will use habitually and focus on getting those well. So for the ordinary level students, again, you have a dialogue. Sag mal, wie ging. Ging is the distant past of gehe. Wie ging es heute mit dem Aufsatz? Okay. So, aber das ist fantastisch. Wie sagte die Lehrerin? So you're following a narrative, you're following a dialogue. Okay. Also, die Mühe hat sich gelohnt. Mühe, M-U-H-E, is the trouble, the strife that you're going through, though it was worth it. Again, for higher level students, like in the Familie chapter, your expectation is that beschreiben Sie kurz Ihre Fächer, warum mögen Sie bestimmte Fächer nicht. Okay. Ich mag 7 Fächer. Ich mag Grundkurs in Mathe und Französisch und ich mache Leistungskurs in die anderen Fächer. Ich mag Deutsch, es ist mein Lieblingsfach, weil ich gute Noten bekomme. Ich mag Mathe nicht, weil es langweilig ist. Machen Sie die Leistungskurs und Kurs I've answered that already. Wie finden Sie es leicht und schwierig? Geografie ist leicht, weil ich gute Noten in Geografie bekomme. Wie konnten Sie Ihre Note verbessern? Verbessern ist to improve. Ich kann mehr studieren, ich muss meine Hausaufgaben machen, ich lerne für 3 Stunden pro Woche. So again, so kind of 6 or 7 ready-made sentences. You learn slowly as you go along and you'll refine your word order processing. So, die Lehrerin hat mich gelobt, ich muss fleißiger lernen, I must study harder. Ich hasse Chemie, denn ich verstehe es nicht. I don't understand it. Okay? So, again, so we have a question here. Was fällt ist heute die Schule schwanzen? Schwanzen is to run truancy, to actually the Mitch of school, for example. So, again, ordinary level students, you're matching the heading with the text. Again, an easy way to do this is that, for example, ich würde erwischt, you find the word erwischt here. Was bedeutet schwanzen? Understanding the text, you're looking for something of a definition as we go. So, in the higher level things, we'll just go down here. Okay, so beantworten die folgende Fragen auf Deutsch. So we'll do one. Wann darf man wo die Schule fehlen? Paragraph 1. So go to paragraph 1. Einfach nicht zur Schule gehen, nur weil man keine Lust hat. Das heißt, die Schule schwanzen. Man sollte eigentlich schon einen guten Grund haben. Not der Grund ist der Wort. So einen guten Grund haben, wenn man nicht zur Schule geht. We have when here, comma before it, when since verb to the end of the sentence. Nur die Schule, die wirklich krank sind, dürfen literal zu Hause bleiben und sie müssen beim Klassenlehrer einen Brief von den Alten. If you don't know, probably you've learned von just in concrete sentences, but we'll go through it in later videos. Von is the dative case, so that changes the das of this guy. So all you need to know is von is something that takes the dative case, and then we'll follow up on that. Mit der Entschuldigung angeben. Okay. So when is one allowed to be absent from school? Okay. Only the students that are genuinely, wirklich is really, that are really sick, but in context genuinely sick, are legally allowed to stay at home, and they must give a letter to their teacher with an apology. Okay. So compound words. Hauptfach, main, subject. Leistungskurs. Leistung is performance, so performance course. Hausarrest, house, arrest, like the verb arrest, but it's like bullying. Okay, 2 major differences between the Schule system in Deutschland and what will be called the DACH region, the DACH. So, for example, for Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, including Liechtenstein a little bit, because Liechtenstein also has German as an official language. So, im Vergleich mit den deutschen Systemen haben wir in Irland langere Schulferien. Im Gegensatz zu dem deutschen System haben wir in Irland mehr Fächer zu studieren, zum Beispiel. Okay, so Let me just second there. Okay, so again, not to be just boring you too much with the words, but again, these are, again, you'll see that from this video and the last video, there is lots of them. There's excess of 25. So I'd focus on 3 or 4 that you'd use on a regular basis, and use those and know how to structure them in a sentence. It's easy in a written because you can correct your mistakes. It's very hard to do initially when you're speaking, so focus on a few, and then we can build up our word back as we go along. Okay. These two here are just like, for example, in either or, neither not. Nicht nur, sondern auch. I think that would be the most important one. Ich mag weder Deutsch noch Irisch. I don't like German or Irish. Okay. Ich spreche nicht nur Deutsch, sondern auch Spanish. I don't only speak German, but I speak also Spanish. So again, just nice little phrases that you have to go. Okay, so onto the letter section. Again, the ordinary level student. So, liebe Paul, vielen Dank für den Brief. Okay, you have to pick the right one, den ich heute bekommen habe. Something, denn ich will ganz bestimmt die Einladung abnehmen. So, to accept the invitation. Ich wollte schon immer nach Deutschland fahren. Something, denn meine Noten in der Schule sind nicht so gut. Okay, so you're selecting the appropriate phrase here. Then describe your school subject. School. Okay, ich lerne Englisch, Irisch, Mathe, Deutsch, Französisch, Chemie, Biologie, Buchhandlung, Wirtschaft, Erdkunde, Sport, SPHG, Religion, Buchhandlung, Physik, Chemie, Biologie. I said those already. What do you do in class, German class? Wir machen Hörverständnisse, wir machen Leseverständnisse, wir schreiben Briefe. Describe a typical day. Ein typischer Schultag. Ein typischer Schultag in Irland ist gut. Die Schule beginnt um 9 Uhr und die Schule endet um 4 Uhr. Wir haben 2 Pausen. Um 11 Uhr esse ich mein Pausenbrot. Ask what present you can bring for your parent or pen pal. So, and ready to blending. So again, for a high level, the writing component of your exam will be an Äußerung zu Thema, which will be a kind of a picture, and then you have to describe it. So you have 2 pictures presented, and you can select the appropriate one. The second one will be the letter that we've seen before. We will see again. So we have this build here. So before I get to the questions, I'll just describe it. Okay. Es gibt ein Klassenzimmer. Die Lehrerin spricht. Es gibt viele Studenten. Sie lernen zum Beispiel Mathematik. Zum Beispiel, sie lernen für das Abitur. Die Studenten sind gut. Und sie schreiben Briefe. So again, you're recycling all the core vocabulary you have and you're putting it into context. So beschreiben Sie, was auf dem Bild sehe. Describe the picture. Gehen Sie gerne in die Schule? Do you like going to school? Ja, ich gehe gerne in die Schule, weil es gut ist. Ich gehe nicht gerne in die Schule, denn es nicht so gut. So see the way I use weil and then, but the verb changes in different position. Was für Vorschriften gibt es in Ihrer Schule? Vorschriften are regulations. So, for example, man darf, one is allowed, D-A-R-F, and one N for man. So, man darf das Handy nicht haben. Beschreiben Sie kurz den Tagesablauf. So, for example, describe your daily interactions, your daily schedule. Inwerfen Sie in die Schule in Deutschland anders als die Schule in Irland? Wo würden Sie lieber in die Schule gehen, in die deutschsprachigen Raum und Irland? So, describe the difference between the schools in England or in Germany and Ireland. So, in English, schools in Ireland start at 9. In Germany, they start around anything between 8 and half 8. In Germany, they finish school a lot earlier, maybe an hour earlier than in Ireland. Or in Ireland, we have a lot more summer holidays. In Germany, currently in Ireland, we have one school model where everybody goes to secondary school for 5 or 6 years, because transition year is optional in some schools, and then go on to university. In Germany, you have 3 systems whereby once you finish the kindergarten, you either go to a gymnasium, which would be the closest equivalent to our secondary school in Ireland, die Gesamtschule oder Realschule oder Hauptschule. Based on the child's performance in primary school, they're allotted one of these schools. A gymnasium is a direct entry into university. You sit the exam, you go to university. With the Gesamt and Realschule, it can be slightly different, whereby students are placed based on competency and expected life outcomes. In the system of the Realschule or Gesamtschule or Hauptschule, if their grades excel or really good, they can go on to das Gymnasium and then go on to university. So that's the system. It can be quite unfair to be labeling somebody at a very young age, but again, that's just the system they work. Es wird behauptet, dass es so viel Stress in das Abiturjahr gibt. Okay, so there's a lot of stress in the final year. Do you agree? Do you not agree? Okay. Auf dem Bild sehe ich ein Klassenzimmer. Auf dem Bild is the first idea in a sentence, verb second, ein Klassenzimmer. In Irland haben wir einen langen Schultag. So, two words there, Schule, Schule, Tag is Tag, Schultag. Okay. So, again, you have auf Seite 22 just revision of chapter 1 and 2, so you'd be advised nearly to do that, because again, it's a good revision technique for you. So again, just to end up, let's just go in here. We will go down to Sprachsatz. I should have had this open. So if we're talking about Schule, for example, it could just be, hier in Irland haben wir einen langen Schultag already. Ich habe 3 Pflichtfächer und meine Wahlfächer sind Deutsch, Erdkunde, Geschichte. Okay. Wir bekommen dieses Jahr so viele Hausaufgaben. Again, just a little bit more elaboration on something you don't like. Ich mag Mathe nicht. Es ist schwer zu lernen, wenn man sich für das Fach nicht interessiert. Okay? Ich habe Deutsch gewählt, denn man braucht eine Fremdsprache, die Fremdsprache, eine Fremdsprache, um auf die Uni zu gehen. I was going to leave it out, but because we presented it, I'll explain it. When you have a comma to start off another idea in a sentence, if you have and zu, that means in order to. The verb is always at the end, and then whatever you want to say goes in the middle. So, auf die Uni zu gehen. In der Schule. Wir haben eine große Auswahl an Fächern und das finde ich sehr gut. Okay? Talking about in one of the things we had about stress in school. Es gibt viel Leistungsdruck, there's lots of pressure, denn bei uns werden die Studienplatz in Räumen eines Punktsystems vergeben. So that's relevant to the Irish context, where you need to acquire a certain amount of points in order to go to university. Okay, and then talking about your parents. Meine Eltern sind verständnisvoll für mich, weil, come before weil goes with the verb at the end of the sentence, weil sie wissen, okay, weil since the verb at the end of the sentence, because we've 2 ideas here, so it's the end of the first idea or sentence, dass ich immer mein Bestes tue. Okay, so we'll just finish up with one more, so we shan't. Okay, this is just talking about bullies. So, if you're talking about your school, just number 12, glücklicherweise gibt es keine Gewalt in meiner Schule. There's no violence in my school. Okay? And that's all you need to know, because that's ready-made for you. So, that's the second video of the Schule.